Hi, this is Dark Eudaimonia with a response to Veritas 48 on the issue of skepticism. Now, this is going to surprise a lot of people, arguing, obviously as I do, from an atheistic perspective, but I think a lot of what Veritas was saying is largely true. There seems to be, though, in his analysis, a three-way confusion between skepticism, scientism, and positivism. Now, let's go about defining some of these terms. Skeptics are simply those who doubt. You can have doubts about anything at all. Claims of the religious, claims of the non-religious. Scientific facts, scientific theories, scientific methodology, moral truth, moral theories. You can even have doubts about your doubts themselves. Scientism is actually something very different. Scientism is the idea that science is the only arbiter of truth, and I do mark only, not final, arbiter of truth. Now, let's be really careful here because this will come up later. By science, what they mean is a set of scientific facts. I will later argue that this system is largely inconsistent with how science actually operates. Finally, we have positivism. This idea is more complicated, so bear with me in this very rough explanation. And for the record, here I'll be arguing for Ayer's version of logical positivism. The word positivism is one that has been used for a wide variety of ways, all the way back to Auguste Comte. Positivism is the idea that there are only truths that are true by definition and empirical facts. Definitional truths are called analytic truths of logic, as opposed to synthetic truths of logic. These would be things like all bachelors are unmarried men. Empirical facts are made up of what Ayer termed sense data, or simply data that we get from our senses. Only those claims that are either true by definition or are empirically verifiable are considered meaningful. Emphasis once again comes on the issue of meaning, because verificationalism and positivism are both primarily theories about meaning. Now, all three of these beliefs are actually extremely problematic in their own right, and actually contradict each other when they're put beside one another. Now, the problems with logical positivism, a la Ayer, is that it is primarily a theory about meaning. It is not a theory about science, and it is not a theory of truth. So if something is not verifiable, it is considered meaningless. It is deemed completely absent of a coherent picture. Well, unfortunately, the criteria of verifiability itself is not verifiable, and so that idea fails pretty much right out the door. Also, there seems to be something absent from the idea of meaning if we take verification as being the only criterion. Although unicorns do not exist, and I have no sense data to attach to them, there's an important sense in which they're still meaningful. For instance, I can imagine unicorns, and I know what it would take for that idea to be true. Finally, the idea of verificationism, or logical positivism, would dispense with all theoretical knowledge. Theories of quantum waves, theories of evolution would all be declared just as meaningless as theories about God or about morality. The other idea, scientism, fails for a whole other set of reasons. The idea that scientific facts are the only true beliefs is largely inconsistent with how science actually works in the real world. Science is a system of investigation. It is not a list of facts. The entire framework of science is about systematic doubt. Science looks for a claim, makes a novel prediction, and then examines the resultant evidence after the fact. Looking at science as a set of facts undermines the process by which new facts can be discovered and old theories can be abandoned. It is one of the hallmarks of scientific thinking, actually, that we're able to move forward. That's what the sure-footed progress of scientific advancement that Kant talked about in the beginning of the Critique of Pure Reason. That's why so many people have come to a scientific worldview. Now, skepticism is the final kettle of fish that we have to deal with. I'm not going to say that skepticism is false or that it has problems with it. I actually believe in skepticism. But what I want to do is add a whole level of novelty into this, examine the ideas a bit more closely, and I think this is an important route for us to go in. John Rawls, for instance, separated theoretical skepticism from normative skepticism, and epistemological skepticism from conceptual skepticism. Theoretical skepticism is skepticism about a theory, claiming that the reasons for a particular theory are bad ones. For instance, not believing in evolution because you don't believe the Grand Canyon was created over millions of years. Normative skepticism, on the other hand, is the classic agnostic position. It is that we ought to hold off judgment on things that we cannot be certain of. This is what Veritas means when he's talking about this coolness of being skeptical. Epistemological skepticism holds a set of beliefs that is intelligible and meaningful, but questions things such as our capacity to reason about them or apprehend them fully. Conceptual skepticism calls into question whether the concepts themselves are meaningful or intelligible. What Veritas appears to be against is the radical, unmitigated skepticism. The idea that we cannot be certain about anything at all, ever. The idea that it is somehow ethically good to be deliberately agnostic about absolutely everything because you cannot be completely certain about anything. On this point, I feel he is completely correct. He is also correct that we tend to dole out our normative skepticism quite unfairly. We are hostile to the point of absurdity with beliefs that we don't hold, and yet are completely happy to accept all sorts of nonsense when it comes to our own ideas. The other claim that he gets right is that we should not be interested in simply rejecting false beliefs. We should be also interested in gaining truth beliefs. But I disagree with Veritas as well. I disagree with Veritas on actually many things, as you will likely see in the future. However, here I think he got it completely right. I believe we have an ethical responsibility to be skeptical, but moderately so, and tempered to be more generally applied. We have to train ourselves to be able to listen to beliefs that we find absurd and judge them fairly. We also have a primary duty to be skeptical about our own beliefs, and be honest about what holes we see in our own ideas. Where I run into trouble with Veritas is where he draws these lines. Positivism is not the same as skepticism. Positivism is not the same as atheism. Positivism is not the same as scientism. When he blurs those lines, I think he does a real disservice to the actual investigation of a problem. I would also question whether seeming to be true, as in the case where he gives moral truth seem to be more true than empirical truth. I don't think that's really a good avenue for Veritas to go in. After all, an invisible man who lives in the sky, who's his own father, comes back from the dead to clear evil that was bestowed on humanity from a magical garden when a naked wib woman ate a forbidden fruit given to her from a talking snake, does not seem very true, does it?